Mark Anderson, the National Security Officer with Microsoft Australia and New Zealand. Thanks for joining us on our Tech and Sec Weekly.
Thank you.
You're presenting at ASIAL's security conference at the ICC Sydney on the 30th of August, and that runs a couple of days, at least to the 1st of September at the Security Expo. You're going to be presenting at the conference. I think Microsoft is a large company, obviously, multinational. What's your role as a National Security Officer? What's your focus?
Yeah, sure. So as National Security Officer for Microsoft Australia and New Zealand, my primary role is to work with our customers, with our partners, with government and with regulators to help them understand how we build the platform, how we secure the platform, what trends in the industry we're seeing which would impact businesses and organizations, and help inform them either build strategy or set policy. So that's basically my role, is to help educate and bring that information out to the market. As part for my sins as well, I do also own things like the protected level assessments of Azure, Office 365, and Dynamics as well. So I do get involved in the assessment and parts of our platforms as well.
Nice. Well, a lot of criticality around the business applications for Microsoft, and it's continuing to expand. We're seeing sort of AI tools being introduced. What's your focus for sort of the key message that you'll have at the conference, and what you're going to be sort of presenting on?
Yeah, so at the conference, I'm going to present on our lessons learned from the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and how, as a private sector organization, we've actually been brought into the conflict by proxy, if you like, by being in that gray zone of being a technology provider. So what I think is really interesting, and this is a story that I've told a few times now over the past year, there's so many learnings from it, is how this is probably the first time we've seen the use of cyber and kinetic activity used in conjunction in a very public domain space. I mean, we know that cyber is that continually contested domain, and we've got examples going back as far as Stuxnet in 2010, and Ukrainian power plants being taken out in 2015. But this is the first time we've really seen that convergence, and how we've seen kinetic activity like missiles and boots on the ground be used in conjunction with cyber attacks. So the talk that I'm going to give talks about how we've observed that, and moreover, how we've observed that broadening of that domain of cyber as well. So it's not just about cyber destruction, which we've seen in the theatre of operations in Ukraine itself, but how we've then seen the espionage operations broaden out beyond Ukraine into the allies and those that are supporting. And then also the third angle of how areas like influence operations are also being used. So really those three areas, so destruction, espionage, and influence operations, and how they all come together. And what can we as businesses and organizations and individuals learn from that conflict and start to prepare ourselves for going forward?
Well, I imagine some of that risk is understanding we're in a global environment as well. So the fact that it is Russia, Ukraine, and a war in Europe, even here in Australia, Australian organisations need to have that footing, and also the geopolitical environment as well. I suppose that explains the touch points that Microsoft has in business. You mentioned even operational technology. You find that your applications are mixed over between OT and IT now?
Yeah, you'll find that we even play now in the space of securing operational technology as well. So, technology is everywhere, and I think that whole idea that in a cyber context, the conflict is borderless, right? And from a physical context, you have to drive a tank or fly a missile, very very physical, very public. In the cyber domain, it doesn't really matter where in the world you are or where you're located. If you're connected to the internet in some way, shape, or form, you effectively can be part of that battleground and that battle space.
How is that challenge presented to Microsoft? As you say, these are nation state actors, very sophisticated cyber criminal groups as well, and they are sort of getting through. There are gaps in there. What's your key message to the security sector? And it's difficult to even do a risk assessment, based on sort of worst case scenarios in that cyber context. What's your general message to the security industry and the professionals that you speak to?
Yeah, so I think the first part of it, and unfortunately, it's not like an amazing story of how Russia and as we think of as being a big cyber superpower, how they were using 0 days and unknown techniques and so forth during this conflict. I think the one thing that's come out as this conflict has progressed has been how we've observed that a lot of standard techniques, off-the-shelf techniques, which your regular cyber criminal has been using, have actually been effective. Things such as spear phishing campaigns, sending emails, people clicking on links, that giving access to environments, or even just things like externally facing web applications that haven't been patched recently and being able to exploit them, which you can do with off-the-shelf tooling that any university student or aspiring penetration tester can get their hands on. So it's sort of, in some ways, it's reinforced the message that we've been saying for some time, which is we need to try and get the foundational cybersecurity hygiene practices right. That's not to say you do those and we're done, but it really ups the game for the aggressor, right? The aggressor then has to up their game and really think about what tooling and techniques they're going to use if you really take away the easy components for them. So taking Australia, you know, we have the Essential 8. Doing the Essential 8 is absolutely awesome, because if you can get to that, get Essential 8 deployed in your environment, then you've definitely made it harder for the attackers. It's not to say you're completely impenetrable, but you've definitely upped the ante. And I think that's probably one of the key messages that I will be driving home at that presentation at the ASIAL conference.
Nice. Well, look, we'll keep the audience wanting more. I've got about 10 other questions that I could ask you, but that's going to be on August 30 to the 1st of September at the ICC Sydney. The website's there, securityexpo.com.au. Go check it out. Mark Anderson, the National Security Officer with Microsoft ANZ, thank you very much for joining us on our Tech and Sec Weekly, and we'll see you next month in Sydney.
Thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you.